Welcome to the debate. Right, so today we are jumping straight into what I think is a really fascinating design challenge, the new rule set for Endless Hammer core rules. Now, this game tries to do something pretty ambitious. It wants to marry the high fidelity, gridded tactical movement we love from games like Endless, fantasy tactics, with the kinetic, fast-paced action framework of Squad Hammer ORC.
And right at the heart of that challenge, maybe the linchpin, is the mechanism that controls the whole flow of the game turn, the order roll. That's that moment when the player rolls 2d6, picks the highest result, and that number tells them how many commands they can issue that turn.
Exactly. That order roll is the engine room, so to speak. So our central question today is this. Does this core mechanism for determining the player's action economy, with all its built-in variance and, frankly, action scarcity, does it effectively balance strategic depth against the game's stated goal of fast narrative combat? Is this constraint, meaningful, or is it just frustrating?
Well, I'm going to be arguing firmly on the side that says this heavy reliance on a random, limited action economy really bottlenecks strategic depth. It diminishes the efficacy, I think, of highly specialized units. It just feels like an artificial constraint slapped onto what is otherwise a deeply detailed tactical game.
And I'm taking the position that the scarcity and the variance that are inherent in the order roll is actually the magic sauce here. It forces incredibly difficult, genuinely meaningful tactical choices. It rewards disciplined resource management, and I'm talking specifically about your MP. And ultimately, I think it enhances the narrative drama of the battlefield precisely because it introduces that uncertainty. Let me just lay out my case for why I think this mechanic works pretty well. The order roll itself, rolling 2d6 and picking the highest, it feels like a deliberate choice. You get a decent average result, sure, but you still have those low outliers, those moments where things go wrong. This uncertainty ensures that no turn is ever purely optimal. You just can't plan 3 turns ahead with perfect efficiency like in some other games. The variance forces you to make priority decisions and manage your resources. And when I say resources, I mean both your command points from the roll and your unit's MP.
Right. MP being the generic term here for movement points or magic points, which fuel all those specialized skills and commands.
Exactly. And the rules are extremely tight around this. A single unit can only receive 1 command in the player phase, no matter how many orders you actually roll. So if you roll a 6, you still can't have your fighter say dash and then engage. This scarcity, I argue, is the key. It forces a dynamic approach to tactical sequencing. You have to constantly weigh these trade-offs. Should you maybe spend the fighter's 2 MP on action surge? That gives you 2 immediate extra free orders, potentially letting you activate another unit entirely. Or does a wounded unit need to use the crucial regroup command? That prevents them from moving, but it instantly recovers 2 HP, which might be vital for survivability. The constraint sharpens the choice, makes it more meaningful.
I see why you emphasize that constraint, I do, but I frame it very differently. While the intent might be to force difficult choices, the inherent randomness, that 2d6 roll, it undermines the truly sophisticated tactical environment you just described. The detailed gridded battlefield, the height rules, the really extensive unit cards that offer huge arrays of specialized options, all that detail feels wasted sometimes.
But don't you think the commander bonus, that +1 you get on the order roll if your nominated hero, your commander, is still alive, doesn't that mitigate some of that randomness? It immediately creates a clear strategic priority: protect that hero at all costs. Unit survivability suddenly becomes this core strategic pillar that directly impacts your action capacity turn after turn.
Okay, the commander bonus is appreciated. It helps. But the variance from the 2d6 roll is still too high, in my view, to guarantee sufficient orders when you desperately need them. I mean, think about it. If you're playing a solo game with a full 4-unit hero guild, you need at least 4 orders just to activate every hero once, just to give them 1 basic command.
Well, statistically, a 2d6 roll, pick highest, means you have about a 75% chance of rolling a 4 or better. That's pretty reliable.
And limiting the action pool via randomness like that
means high MP units, units with expensive, complex special commands, they might frequently fail to utilize their full potential. If I consistently roll only 3 or maybe 4 orders turn after turn, why would I even invest heavily in a sorcerer who has 7 MP or a wizard with 6 MP? It renders their higher resource pools kind of inefficient. And that restriction clashes severely, I think, with the expected high activity level we want from a classic fantasy RPG party. We expect our heroes to do things.
Let's hone in on that specific tension you mentioned between the action scarcity and the tactical utility, especially when we look at movement specialists. That rule limiting a unit to only 1 command per player phase, it feels deeply restrictive, even if you happen to roll a high number of orders, like a 5 or a 6.
Okay, and what specific units are you seeing this impact most severely? Where does it really hurt?
Well, the high mobility units, primarily. Look at the Ranger or the Rogue. They both boast MOV 4 and JMP 2. That's movement 4 squares, jump height 2. They are designed for dynamic movement, getting around the battlefield, especially with verticality. The Ranger even has that ability in Natural Explorer, which grants 2 immediate jump commands for just 1 MP. I mean, that ability is built for complex maneuvering.
Right. I understand the feeling, the sense that complexity is being stifled there. But let me offer a different perspective. Maybe that scarcity is the point of interaction with the complex movement rules.
How do you mean?
Well, if orders were guaranteed, if they were plentiful, tactical movement on the grid, honestly, it would become trivial. You just always use your best movement option every single turn. No real thought needed. But because movement is complex in this game, it's strictly orthogonal, units block movement, you have complicated jump rules, you even take damage for jumping down too far, the 1 command restriction forces players to prioritize. It makes sure that maximizing the utility of that 1 command is a strategic puzzle, not just a routine chore.
But I see those high mobility units frequently reduced to just simple engage or dash actions, merely to keep up with the flow of battle. They aren't really engaging with their specialized move and abilities, they're just getting into position. It feels like you invest in this specialized toolbox, and then the order roll just forces you to use the hammer every time.
Okay, but that brings up a crucial element of sequencing that the order roll actually enables: the end step trade-off. If you roll more orders than you strictly need to activate your units in the player phase, you carry those excess orders into the end step. Now, in that step, every unit can get 1 final activation, but you have to spend 1 of those leftover orders to do it. This forces a really difficult decision. Is a critical hero action necessary right now during the main player phase, or can I risk saving an order to execute a crucial defensive maneuver like defend in the end step, knowing I'm limited to just 1 command there anyway? The system rewards precise sequencing and anticipation, not just, dumping actions whenever you can.
Now, I agree that sequencing matters. Of course it does. But that necessary precision feels deeply punitive when we start looking at the economic viability of high MP units. I just don't buy that the scarcity enhances their utility. I think it actively restricts it. Let's maybe shift our focus to the cost-benefit analysis there.
Yeah, that's a critical discussion. Absolutely.
Okay, look at the casters. The wizard has 6 MP. To cast a potent spell like Fireball Range 4 Area of Effect 1, it costs 2 MP. Now, if the order roll is low, say you only got 3 orders total for your turn, you face a potentially devastating choice. Do I let the wizard cast that 1 possibly game-changing spell, or do I have to dedicate those limited orders to movement and defense for my frontline units, the ones currently taking hits? The MP cost of that spell suddenly feels exorbitant when the overall action economy is being rationed by that die roll.
That's a compelling point regarding the immediate tactical costs, I grant you that. But we need to consider how these high MP units are internally designed. They are designed to be powerful, yes, but conditionally powerful. They are not designed to be casting massive spells every single turn. That would be broken, which is why they have mechanisms built in to manage their large resource pools over time.
Mechanisms like what specifically?
Well, like the Wizard's Arcane Recovery. That ability lets them recover half their maximum MP, so 3 MP in this case, once per game during the status phase. Or look at the Sorcerer's Metamagic, which gives a repeatable +1 mag, that's magic attack, for just 1 MP. These aren't intended for constant turn-by-turn use. They are powerful force multipliers designed to be unleashed when orders are available and the timing is right. So a low order count isn't necessarily just a frustration. You could see it as an incentive to manage NP resources carefully across multiple turns, waiting for that high-impact moment, rather than just spamming spells inefficiently. Patience is rewarded.
Okay, but compare the patience required for a sorcerer who has 5 mag and a pool of 7 MP. Compare that to the sheer brute efficiency of the barbarian. 5 attack, 8 HP, only 1 MP total. The barbarian can use reckless attack for 0 MP cost. Okay, it grants +1 ATK, but you accept a retaliatory +1 ADK if you're attacked back. Fine. But that action is consistently high value, has 0 MP cost, and guarantees reliable output regardless of the variance of the order roll. Why would I commit precious resources and potentially scarce orders to complex conditional casters when the barbarian guarantees maximum impact with minimum strategic cost turn after turn?
Because the casters offer crucial range, utility, and, maybe most importantly, area control that the barbarians simply cannot match. The barbarian's an absolute hammer, no doubt, but only a 1-square solution. A well-timed fireball hitting 2 or even 3 enemy units can instantly shift the balance of the entire board in a way the barbarian's guaranteed single-target damage never could. Yes, the casters require strategic setup and timing, while the barbarian offers more tactical, instant gratification. And that brings us, I think, to the biggest contrast: the interaction between the player's variable orders and the fixed, predictable pressure you get from the enemy phase.
Exactly, and I come at this from a very different perspective when I look at that enemy AI structure. The enemy units, like the goblins in the standard test scenario, they all receive 1 order each, guaranteed, every single enemy phase. That is a massive fundamental difference in how the two sides operate.
And their actions are dictated by very clear, often quite simple AI rules.
Yes. Goblin warriors prioritize the hero with the lowest HP, archers prioritize getting shots at rear exposure or from height advantage, and the goblin boss uses goad if a warrior is already in combat, which grants that unit another command for 1 MP. The key point here is the asymmetry. The player's effectiveness is wildly variable because of that order roll, while the enemy's pressure is constant and predictable, at least in quantity. This system, I argue, inherently favors attrition against the player, who might suffer a terrible 3-order turn against 6 guaranteed enemy actions coming right back at them.
I agree the asymmetry is real. I don't dispute that. But I'd argue it's crucial for the solo and co-op modes. In those modes, the player is often outnumbered. You mentioned the 4 heroes versus 6 goblins example. The randomized orders inject necessary volatility and, yes, narrative challenge. If the player knew they had 5 or 6 commands every single turn, the highly effective heroes would probably just trivially wipe the floor with the predictable AI. Where's the tension in that?
Volatility is fine. I'm not against variability, but when the enemy actions are guaranteed, a low player order roll can feel catastrophic, not just challenging. If I needed that 1 precious order just to activate my wizard to move him out of range of 2 incoming goblins, and I failed the roll, those guaranteed goblin warrior actions are going to punish that failure severely because they just stick to their predictable path. It feels less like tension and more like punishment.
But that predictability is the very element that skilled players can exploit. The Goblin's AI, while predictable in quantity, is highly conditional in its targeting. For example, you mentioned Goblin warriors prioritize low HP, but they also only attempt to engage the same target if another goblin is already in combat with it. This is specifically to leverage their pack tactics and mob attack synergies. You can anticipate that specific move.
Okay, anticipate it maybe. And how does that help when I only rolled 2 orders and both my frontliners are engaged?
It allows you to pre-plan in previous turns. That predictability, coupled with the ability for heroes to use defensive commands like defend +1 DEF, or even regroup if they have the space, means that a skilled player can mitigate those low order rolls through superior tactical positioning and planning ahead. If you know you might roll low next turn, and you always might, You position your commander more defensively this turn, or you use your single precious order for a defend command now, knowing the enemy is definitely coming for that unit next turn, regardless of what you roll then. The constraint doesn't necessarily punish the prepared player. It rewards foresight. So ultimately, I stand by the assertion that the order roll and the resulting action scarcity it creates is pretty fundamental to Endless Hammer's identity. I think it succeeds because it forces players into making these crucial tactical trade-offs. It rewards disciplined management of MP and unit positioning, and it thereby sharpens the decision-making process within what is otherwise a complex grid environment. The constraint is part of the complexity, not something that detracts from it.
And I maintain that, while action scarcity is certainly a valid and powerful design lever, the randomness of that 2d6 roll introduces too much instability, especially when you consider the high MP costs of specialized unit abilities. I feel it hinders the strategic depth offered by the unit specialization and the vast array of commands and core abilities available. It sometimes ends up punishing players who invest in high-cost, high-impact units, rather than truly rewarding adaptable strategy. It feels like it rewards luck sometimes, more than skill.
I'd say it demands adaptability, not pure optimization. It forces the player to fight the game state, the situation on the board, not just optimize against a spreadsheet.
And maybe that is where we fundamentally disagree on the definition of true depth in a tactical game. If depth is purely about random adaptation, then all the detailed grid mechanics and complex unit statistics, they start to feel a little bit wasted, don't they?
Indeed, both positions are certainly viable, and I suspect the success of this hybrid design will ultimately hinge on whether players as a whole find these highly constrained choices compelling and dramatic, or just simply frustrating, especially when they're confronting that highly structured enemy AI with its guaranteed actions. It's definitely a great test case for emergent strategy versus punishing randomness.